Thousands of Russians are fleeing the country to avoid getting drafted into the war in Ukraine.
Their flight comes as anti-war protests erupt across the country in response to President Putin's military mobilization order last week. Lines of people and vehicles are being seen at Russia's border checkpoints. The mass exodus suggests the extreme unpopularity of the order and signals just how far many Russians are willing to go to avoid fighting in Ukraine. Joining us now for more on this is Rayhan Demytrie. She's a correspondent with our partners over at the BBC. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So we just saw that picture, mass exodus, Russians fleeing as a result of Putin's draft. Tell us where they're heading and how are they being received? Because we had a very interesting conversation with Ukraine's ambassador to the UN in which he said Europe really needs to reevaluate how they're thinking about these migrants.
Well, Russians are fleeing wherever they can. I've been at the Russian-Georgian border a couple of days ago, and there are huge queues on the Russian side. The picture that you've just shown is just a tiny fraction of the reality on the ground. There are images. Today I've seen pictures that were shot, drone footage, and showing miles and miles. This line stretches just for many, many miles. That's on the Russian-Georgian border. There's a similar situation on Russian-Kazakhstan border, on the border with Mongolia. So Russians are fleeing everywhere. A friend of mine who is in the tourism business, so she's booking flights, and she rang me today to say it's been nightmare since Tuesday, since this announcement. She's been trying to help book flights in any direction. So people are fleeing wherever they can.
You know, I did a story recently with Russian Americans who kind of consider themselves refugees because of the threat of being part of the opposition. And they were walking me through how difficult it is to leave. And this is people who had American passports. I mean, to even get to Turkey was incredibly difficult. What are Georgian officials doing to handle this influx of Russians hoping to get into their country?
For now, the Georgian officials are letting these people into the country. One of the reasons why Russians are coming to Georgia is because they can enter this country without a visa. There have been calls from the Georgian opposition to restrict this influx, to introduce visas, and from the opposition, but the government said, "Oh no, it's chauvinistic. We can't do that. We should allow these people in." And just to remind you that this is the second wave that we're seeing here in Georgia. The first wave being back in February and March when Russia invaded Ukraine. So in the last couple of days, I've been gathering for my reports, walking in the capital, Tbilisi, and you wouldn't believe it. Practically every other person in the city now is a Russian young man with a backpack, looking completely lost and trying to figure out what to do next.
Rayhan, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but when we see those images, it looks like a powerful rebuke of Putin's actions. Do you know anything about how Russians are responding to this mass exodus?
Well, I can tell you what people that I've been talking to, what they're telling me, you know, the reasons. Obviously, the main reason why they're fleeing their country is because they want to avoid being drafted. They don't want to go and fight in this unclear reasons. And what I found quite interesting is how several people told me that when this war began, for them, they just tried to kind of distance themselves because they thought there's nothing they can do. The repressions are at such a high level in Russia. You cannot protest. You can't do anything. So people were just kind of trying to live their lives and thinking that this war does not concern them because it's happening somewhere far away. But with this call for partial mobilization, suddenly it was a massive wake-up call, and people realized that now the Russian men in uniform will come knocking at every door, and that's exactly what is happening. right now in Russia.
It must be a tough choice, too, for them, knowing that, if it is just men that you're seeing who are kind of dodging this draft, their families must be left behind, and they might be fearing retribution, from Russia if they're fleeing, if they're escaping, if they're not to be accounted for.
That's right. But I think families of those who have managed to escape are relieved that their sons, their husbands are safe. And yesterday I was talking to one young man. He was in his 20s, and he told me he was from the city of Rostov-on-Don, which is quite close to the Ukrainian border. And he said that he had no time to say goodbye to his parents. When he heard about this mobilization, he just grabbed his bag, his passport, and he headed towards any border. Well, in his case, it was the Georgian border. And then he told me that he spoke to his mother, and that in their town, that's according to his mother, I did not verify this information, his mother told him that the military came to the factory in their town, and they drafted something like 750 people from that factory. So people who are here, those young men that made it to Georgia, of course, Georgians are not, I cannot say that this is a welcoming country. Georgians are known for their hospitality, but for them, it's a security threat, because Georgia had its own war with Russia in 2008. And now people are really scared that, who knows, Vladimir Putin might use an excuse and say, oh, I'm going to protect my Russian citizens. So for Georgians, it's a big and uncomfortable situation that they have to see so many Russians fleeing from being drafted.
So interesting.
So much to consider here, and so many negotiations every country at the border has to make. Rayhan Demytrie, thank you so much.
Thank you.